This world is already a heavy and dark enough place as it is. We don't need to then add to it with the way that we are thinking and the way that we are communicating to ourselves.
True. But you also don't need to always just see the bad all around. There's so much good in this world too. Your vantage point dictates that though.
Hey everybody, it's Bianca.
Welcome back, Evolvers. It's Emilia for episode number 519, How to Think Like an Optimist. We are going to help give you a healthy dose of optimism today.
So, for those of you who are new here, might not know us, might not have heard previous episodes, Emilia and I, in many ways, are diametric opposites. Emilia is way more optimistic. I am way more pessimistic. Emilia has always been a very future-oriented thinker. I naturally, on my own accord, am more of a right here, right now, maybe the next week thinker. And there's a lot of challenges and there's a lot of differences between, not challenges, there's a lot of differences between you and I. And those differences have actually been oddly beneficial because it allows us to see from multiple different vantage points, have different lenses, different ideas, different thoughts on things.
Right.
And I never wanted to stay like that. So I'm not someone who was like, yeah, I'm different and this is great. No. I am certain that the way that I was thinking, the way that I was operating was not what was best for me and for my life and for my future, especially given what I had identified wanting in my life and for my life. And so you and I are able to have different lenses, and it benefited me so much being able to learn from you and being able to apply the way that you naturally are into my life, knowing that I'm never going to be like you. I'm never going to be closer on your end, but I can get closer and I can become my own version of that and my own like betterment toward that. So the reason I wanted to do this episode was because we are, with the way that the world is right now, with current events, with the advancements of technology, with the way that people are now operating, with the way that life is going just in general, it would be so unbelievably easy to sink into massive hopelessness, to have a wild belief that everything is going to be horrific, everything is going to be terrible, the world is doom and gloom, we are all going to combust and die. It would be so easy to think like that. And if people aren't able to see the world the way that you do or closer, or have the types of thinking skills to be able to see things differently or shift their perspective or so on and so forth, it's just going to continue to feel dreadful and horrible. And when people feel that level of dread, they're less likely to engage in behavior change. They're less likely to cultivate the skills and the capabilities and nurture their own nervous system and their own emotions to actually get that more positive outcome, that more beneficial outcome that they want. So my hope is that I can kind of pick your brain a little bit for our listeners and for myself too, to be honest, of how does someone learn to think in that more optimistic standpoint, and not optimism meaning ignorant bliss, assuming everything is going to be fine and dandy, but your optimism is actually very meticulous because of the way that you think, because of the way that you see the world. So Here are the big questions that I'm going to ask you, and I will kind of pitch and catch a little bit.
Okay. I've got my pencil handy.
No. I'm not going to ask them all now, but like themes.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, themes. Okay. What are the skills underneath that? What are the like capabilities that you have that people can start to learn? And like, what are the daily habits and practices that we can start to implement today and start to do? Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. Let's dialogue.
So I guess in your mind, how would you define the way that you think? I don't know if you would call it optimism. Maybe you call it like futurist or future-based thinking. I don't know. So can you, I guess right off the bat, like how do you think? Yeah, frame it.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm going to categorize the way in which we're going to talk about this in 3 different categories. So people who think their point of thinking is focused on outcomes versus the people who are focused on truth. So those are your truth seekers versus people who are focused on meaning or a lack of meaning. So the way in which I think, what I've observed is when I am focused on outcome, I essentially have all 3 of those, but in a very unique way. So I am inherently a truth seeker. So I am more realist at the core of my being. I seek out truth wherever I can. And then on top of that, I am always kind of looking for outcomes and reverse engineering outcomes. And so that puts me to a focal point of what's the best thing that could happen. I hold the kind of, it's like spinning plates in a way. I hold the spinning plate that is always consciously trying to focus on and evaluate what is the best that could happen. And then when I'm seeking truth, I hold that plate of what's the best thing that could happen, right? That's where that hopeful thinking comes in. And then my realist truth-seeking part of me really does start to hold plates of probability. So, okay, cool. That's the like best case scenario, most hopeful, most optimistic, most positive, quote unquote, way to look at it. But we also are very much, I am also very much grounded in data and science and empirical evidence. And so that realism starts to spin other plates of actual probability. And so then when we get into the meaning standpoint, I do hold the belief that kind of is overarching, that is allowing the outcomes plates to spin and the the truth-seeking plates to spin the way in which they do, because my belief is that inherently life has meaning in it. So on the contrary, some people don't believe that life has meaning in it. That's where you have nihilism. There's this strict lack of meaning or intrinsic purpose that life has. There's no good or bad. That's a human-made concept. As someone who is an existentialist, who is always thinking about, yes, the future, that's where I would inlay my future, as I am also a futurist. Therefore, not only do I think good things can happen, but I also am always zoomed into the future and always coming back to the now. And being able to hold all of those dualities while jumping out of my own frame of mind and into the nihilistic, the pessimistic, the skepticism of someone else, the pessimism of someone else, and holding kind of the multiple frames of mind to be able to make the best decision and to evaluate outcomes. So that's kind of how I would ground my thinking. And it's funny, Bianca, because when you said it's, your own version building that, I didn't realize that I thought that way until I started to hear your level of honesty with self and with me about how different I am in that. So that wasn't necessarily something that I was aware of, because while I was metacogging my way into certain outcomes, no one ever really had the humility and the courage, if you will, to say, hey, Emilia, you're different and I want to absorb my version of your thinking. So it's been a really cool trip for me as well to understand the different frames of mine and to work directly alongside someone who I care so deeply about and really see the frame of mind, the vantage point that you've had, because that's helped me in many ways be very grateful for the frame of mind that I have, and also brought a lot of, oh, whoa, I didn't realize those were some of my blind spots of being someone who is futurist, optimistic in outcomes, who applies a realism-based approach to specific truth, and does have this bigger overarching belief that life has meaning, we have intrinsic purpose, and is existentialist in nature. So it's been fascinating. And for anyone that's joining us on this episode, I think one of the biggest takeaways that you can have for yourself is really evaluating and understanding, where do you find your mind living, or what frame, what vantage point what lens are you seeing through?
So because you have an inherent belief that life has meaning, that's just the baseline that is there.
Yeah.
You will look for outcomes, and you will identify outcomes that, because you also have a high level of self-belief, you believe that you are capable of achieving them. And you also try to understand the realities and the probabilities and all of these other things to be able to make informed decisions about approach, tactics, timeline, so on and so forth. Is that, if I tried to sum that up, is that a good summation? Okay.
Beautifully.
For someone who does not have your level of self-belief, for someone who can't see probabilities the way that you can, for someone like me when you first met me, where does someone even start with that? Because I can imagine there's someone hearing this being like, what the hell? She does what? How does she do that? And that's exactly how I felt, which is like, it's why when people meet you, they're so afraid of highlighting how different you are. I don't think it's because, and I mean, I could be wrong about this. I think it has less to do with you and more to do with them. They don't want to feel bad about themselves, you know? So like, I could be wrong about this, but I don't think it's that people don't want you to feel good. It's that they don't want to feel bad.
I'm with you on that. I really think it's just like, I mean, I understand human behaviors deeply, and we're very self-preserving on an unconscious level. So I've learned to come around and accept that and really have appreciation for when I see that come up, because younger versions of Emilia for sure didn't understand and really did take that personally and didn't know how else not to, right? So I think I've grown a lot in that, and and if I put my shoes, right, that's one of the things that, to what I said formerly about what your courage in communicating your truth to me has helped me really realize actually how much that is the case for so many people. And that's given me a tremendous amount of empathy, sympathy, and compassion for people that I didn't know I was completely not holding in my way of being, which just made it even worse.
I mean, Emilia, it is so unbelievably devastating sitting in front of someone that you know you will never be like, and they are better than you at everything. It's not even funny. And the things that they're not better than you in, it's because it's a choice, not because they're not that. You know, like that's not, there's almost no one else in the world that's the case. Like people are good at one thing. So like Michael Jordan, basketball, right? But like, I'm sure there's 1,000 things I'm better than him at. But when you're sitting in front of someone and it's like, oh, there's nothing. And even if you don't say it, people can sense it. They're like, different.
Yeah.
Weird. Ugh, I don't feel safe. It's brutal. It's uncomfortable. But like because of my goals, because of what I want, and because of how deeply I care about you and like our relationship, I've I've had no choice but to do that because of what I am choosing. It is a choice. I made the choice,
100%.
but it's because of what I want. So there is no other choice because that is what I want.
Right.
So for someone who wants to become their bettered version of themselves, I'm going to put the disclaimer out there. None of us are going to be like Emilia. Emilia is the only one in the world, her and Alan. And it is the truth. If I'm proven wrong, come forward, send us a DM. You and Emilia
Please.
can pitch and catch. She's searching for it because it sure as shit is not me. And that's okay. So for the people like us, the people like me and the listeners who it's really hard being able to think like that. It's really hard having that level of self-belief that there's an outcome out there and I'm capable of achieving it and I'm worthy of achieving it, and I'm going to gather all the metrics and the data and the this and the that and the reverse engineer it and understand probabilities and da 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 da. Where does someone start? I have my idea and like what I help clients do on their own accord, but like, where would you have people start for them? What do you do with clients?
It depends on the person. And I say
Nice.
this because of the truth of the matter. I am really good at sussing out who has a high level of pain tolerance. So if you have a high level of pain tolerance, and I'm talking about emotional, psychological pain, and you have the skills and the work ethic and the grit, the drive to persevere through challenging times, adversities, and you are still going to vote for yourself, even if you don't have the quote unquote thinking yet, right? That's where like work ethic is a great determinant of that I see in people. I will go to the pain. I will ask you, what is it that's so painful in your life? And to be honest, that's my preferred approach. Where's the biggest pain points in your life? What is the most devastating for you to experience emotionally, psychologically, physically, mentally, spiritually? And I'll go to the pain, the bottleneck. In other words, it's called targeting the constraint, right? I'm not necessarily going to go immediately to where are you winning and what do you want for your life, right? That will come. But I want to understand where are the big pain points, or at the very least, what are the stories that you're telling yourself that are the pain points? And through that series of questions, I just so happen to be an incredible investigator to where I understand where the BS line is. The story that you're telling yourself is painful versus what you're conveniently avoiding and omitting is usually where the most pain is. And so for people to develop that, we go to the pain first because they're capable of navigating the discomfort, the pain. And obviously I make sure that I test it's like a stress test. I am testing their ability to hold that pain into the degree and the potency of their own pain. For people who are not in that, and that's totally okay, I will
Is it just pain tolerance though, or is it pain tolerance and belief level? Because what you just said, it sounds like it's the combination of both. So for those people, they potentially have a higher level of pain tolerance, meaning emotional pain tolerance, and they have higher levels of self-belief to where when you target the constraint, they're not going to fall apart. They're like, oh, thank God. Okay, cool. How do we navigate?
I personally don't think that it is belief because I think I used to think that. I think that my experience has told me that their belief in comparison to a large majority of others, you could argue that it is, they have higher levels of self-belief. But I actually think that because they're focused on just showing up every single day, I think that that's more the people who are focused on outcomes, and hence why the skill of a work ethic has served them, which usually for those individuals, they've actually lacked the ability to pat themselves on the shoulder because they have a deep core wound that they're not deserving of that level of belief, right? So they don't actually self-assign, which is, that triad of state, prove, self-assign. It's like you state something to yourself that you're going to do. For example, I'm going to go to work today. I'm going to give it my best, right? Not naming the outcome, not necessarily future casting what that is, and you don't necessarily think that the outcome is in your quote unquote control, but you do know that you showing up and giving it your best, aka your attitude, is what's going to serve you you just have kind of blind faith in that, if you will. So you show up. So in showing up, you prove it to yourself, and then you just kind of do that again. And so you ping pong back between those two. You miss out on the third one of self-assigning, which increases your level of self-worth and self-belief in tandem. And so those are the people that usually end up gravitating towards me and really leveling up, like, and transforming beyond people's wildest belief systems. Like, I get people asking, like, how do you do what you do? And it's that, I think, that approach. But the secondary approach for someone that wants to start, just as important, not necessarily depending on who you are, as effective, is let's go and dreamcast. Let me understand the inverse opposite, which is, what do you deeply desire? What do you deeply hope for? What are your intrinsic and extrinsic motivators? Again, what's the story you're telling yourself versus the story you're telling me? Because around me, you're going to give me your best foot forward, and I know that. So again, what are you lying to yourself? How are you lying to yourself? What are you omitting? And what in that lie or omission, unconsciously, again, out of self-preservation, what is it that you deeply want and crave, but are afraid to actually admit it because you don't believe it's possible, or you're pessimistic, you're skeptical, and or you might have a dose of nihilism or pessimism. Those people tend to avoid me the most, and understandably, because if you think about their belief systems, they have the biggest chasm of belief systems that they have to cross. And they will look around and see tools all around them, but never once try to pick them up, because it's devastating to try to tinker with that belief system that has really raveled them up so deeply and so tightly.
The approach that works for each person is highly dependent and subjective on that person. So like, one is not, for everyone listening, one is not better or worse. It's just, where are you on that spectrum, and learning how to have a level of self-acceptance of that. So like,
so important.
For a long time, I've really rejected the fact that I am not more like that first category. It's been a massive pain point for me, because I felt a lot of shame about who I was and how I was, and not feeling good enough, and so on and so forth. But it's like, you miss out on all the opportunities to grow and get better when you're just feeling bad about it, rather than accepting it, doing what you can with what you have, and learning how to tie your worth to like you, not the external comparison, which is something I'm still working on, because it's really hard. So for some people, it's going to be target the constraint. For other people, it's going to be, let's build like self-belief and all of these capabilities and competencies from the ground up.
Yeah. Target the desire.
After that, what are the things that you are working on with those people that is going to then help them be able to think in that more holistic, optimistic, belief-driven lens, using those three things: the meaning, the truth, outcomes, and the truth.
Yeah. So essentially, I think the easiest way to go about that, and the one that's actually most practical, tactical, and can be done even on their own accord, which I highly encourage, go fly, right? is making sure that we have that feedback loop on a series of events, because the series of events in our lives always has a pre, a during, and a post. We just live in that giant cycle of pre, during, post. For example, we have the recording that we're doing right now. And so the listeners, you're literally listening to an event right now, and your life is listening to this episode. There's an after, where you're done listening to this episode, where you have an opportunity to maybe reflect, or you don't give yourself any space to reflect upon, and you just go to the next video or the next thing, right? Again, that's another event. Before you listen to this episode, just like before Bianca and I recorded this episode, you were doing something just like she and I were doing, right? There was a little prep talking about this episode. So our life is just this series of pre, during, and post at all times. And so I use that framework, if you will, that treadmill, that cycle with clients to be able to evaluate, okay, what's coming up in the future that we know is going to happen. Okay, well, I have this presentation that I'm going to be doing on habits, or I have this text that I need to send to a family member, or I have this doctor's appointment that I have to go to for my hip, or whatever, right? Like, oh, there's Father's Day, like whatever it is. Let's name an event that's going to happen, because usually I see clients either weekly or biweekly. In the next week, let's just assume it's a weekly client, right? In the next week, what's coming down the pipeline? AKA, what are some of the events that you are certain with a high probability you're going to be at, right? And so it's going to be likely a everyday occurrence that we're going to start at and kind of build and titrate the level of intensity, if you will, of how you go about thinking in the pre, how you go about staying in that thought process in the during, and what you do with your thought process at the end of that prep, rep, reflect, prep, rep, reflect. And so again, to every individual, it looks slightly different based on the event, based on the people that are there, based on the outcome that they want to derive, based on their emotional state and what are the probabilities. And so I find a very basic example is, okay, what is most likely to happen? That's where we understand and evaluate how they're already thinking about it. Well, I'm going to see my aunt. Let's say it's a baby shower. I'm going to see my aunt. She, like, just every single time I see her, it's always the worst conversations. Like, boom, that's a pessimistic frame. So we try to move and boot, scoop, booty a little bit of that frame so that you can open up maybe a little bit to, okay, if that's what you're thinking is going to happen, can we acknowledge that's coming from a pessimistic frame, right? We first have to acknowledge we can't change what we don't take ownership over, right? We can't even move or nudge it in a different direction if we're not aware we're thinking we're in that frame. And so we use that kind of approach to be able to break down the actual cognitive processes, the automatic thoughts, the emotions that are charged underneath that in a practical setting like that. And then open up the door of, okay, if that's what you believe in your pessimistic mind is most likely to happen, then we offer a little shift based on the example. What is the best that could happen if you were to come and take my mindset and kind of try it on?
And what are the behaviors that you maybe can try, or the thoughts that we can try to adopt to make sure that the best happens? So
Exactly.
this is really like behavior. It's very deep, intentional mindfulness.
Yes.
Which real mindfulness, not just like, I am conscious of my mind. It's like, no, actually being a deep understanding of the way that your mind works and how you think and how your
100%.
thought patterns are. So a deep, intentional mindfulness, and then behavioral exposure.
Yep.
I literally did this with a client earlier. He has a goal of quitting marijuana, something we're working on. He's noticing the cognitive deficits. He's like, I'm scared for my brain. I'm like, honestly, you should be. And I showed him the photos of what it looks like when someone uses marijuana for a prolonged period of time. It literally looks like a brain with Alzheimer's. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
So I showed him these photos, and it's like, you're still relatively young. You're about to be 40, but you're not, quote unquote, over the hill. So there's still hope here.
Yeah.
So we ran a behavioral experiment, and I actually literally did exactly what you just said. So
Great.
What is the old belief that you have that we know is underlying there?
Right.
This is going to be too hard. I'm not capable of this. I can't live without it. Okay, great. What's the new belief that you want to develop?
Fabulous.
He's like, that I don't need marijuana in my life and my life will be better without it. I'm like, awesome. What are the behaviors that we have to do to make sure that at the end of this experiment, that is the belief that is adopted?
Nice.
So deep intentional mindfulness, and then behavioral experiments, proving to yourself, state, prove, self-assign, state, prove, self-assign. Emilia, thank you for helping us unpack that. We do have to start to wrap this up. So any final thoughts before we go?
No, thank you for asking the questions, for summarizing, and for giving a very helpful example for people to try to orient themselves to just how easy it can be, so that it doesn't feel like this huge leap of just constant challenge to go and nudge from one frame of mind to another. Because beliefs, yes, they're powerful, but I think we often forget how powerful we are to construct new beliefs. So bringing the power back to our community, I think, is so powerful. So thank you.
Behavior embedded in belief makes it not delulu. That's also the other thing, because a lot of people will tend to go to they try to go from one radical extreme to the other, and that is not helpful. You're not gonna gaslight yourself into believing that the world is sunshine and rainbows, and that's just not, it's not constructive. It's not gonna help you get the thing that you ultimately want. What will are the small micro changes that help you to see more realistically, like what Emilia said, have belief in yourself that you can do something. And then have that level of optimism that I can make change in my life. Maybe I can't change the world. Maybe I can't solve world hunger. Maybe I can't stop war from happening, but like I can make meaningful change and meaningful progress in my life. And that can ripple out.
Beautiful. So powerful, so important.
Beautiful. Okay. If you enjoyed this episode and you want another one to sink your teeth into, episode 503, The Foundations of Good Mental Health, we dive into this concept a little bit more, but what are the habits and skills and behaviors that you can start to take on to have your mental health be in a good place, to be able to do the deep reflection and take the behavior change.
Great. Love that. As always, thank you for your attention, for your interest in the science of holistic well-being and mental health. We are with you always. And if you're looking to go a little bit deeper, we have a group coaching program that we do every single year, only once a year, and there's only 10 spots. So by this time, it is already likely almost filled. So if you're interested and you want to enact change with a community, 10 people, 9 people by your side, click the link in the show notes. We would love to have you join us. As always, everyone, keep evolving. Bye.
Bye, everybody.